Hey everyone, welcome to Trainer Talk episode 10 with Colin and Grant. Today we are going to be talking about different types of training styles, training methodologies, and how you can best use them to achieve your fitness goals. How
I
you
love
doing today, Colin?
love the little wave you do.
Yeah. Just make it friendly, get the people going. I don't know.
Can't even see us.
Well, I mean, it depends on the YouTube channel. You can,
Yeah, fair,
not the podcast,
fair.
but anyway, so let's go ahead and get into it. We have a few different topics we're going to talk about today, including powerlifting, bodybuilding, CrossFit, and running. Obviously, this is not all inclusive of every type of training style there is, but I think it's a pretty thorough list that'll cover a lot of people's kind of major goals and focuses. So let's just start with powerlifting. Maybe Colin, I don't know if you want to take the lead on this one. Like maybe just give a quick definition to the people at home. What is powerlifting and what it entails?
Powerlifting is more so of trying to move the most amount of weight as possible in the shortest amount of time. So typically, whenever you see like a powerlifter, they're not going to, do a burnout on bench press. They're not going to, really do many accessory lifts. Their main focuses are going to be around the big three of squat, bench, deadlift,
Yeah,
and they don't tend to, stray away from those three. They're going to train all three on one day, or they might only train two, but their training is very specific to trying to be as strong as possible.
right. Yeah, exactly. I agree with that definition. I think for organized powerlifting, the kind of the sport of it is a squat, a bench, and a deadlift. You do all in the same day. You have three attempts at each lift, and you go through and you just try to put up the best total amount of weight that you possibly can across those three. Now, why the squat, bench, and deadlift? Why are those picked? I mean, I think it's a bit arbitrary to a degree. I think probably just when I don't know the exact history of how the sport was invented, but they probably just wanted lifts that in aggregate would target just kind of total body strength and give a kind of a metric for that. Obviously, bench press is going to hit your upper body muscles, your pecs, your triceps, your shoulders a little bit. Deadlift is going to hit pretty much your entire posterior chain from your glutes, your hamstrings, your spinal erectors, your lats, your traps, pretty much everything. And then squats are going to primarily target your legs, especially your quads, your glutes, things like that. So basically, if you total those three up, it's not a perfect measure, but it kind of gives you a pretty good sense of how strong somebody is. So yeah.
Yeah.
I also would say, I mean, like I don't know if you'd agree with this, Colin. Like I would say powerlifting. To me, I consider powerlifting in general, just kind of training for strength, like you were kind of saying. Like obviously, like those three, if you're doing like an official like powerlifting meet, like those three are the focus. But like I would still consider just generally training for strength as opposed to training for aesthetics, which is bodybuilding, which we'll talk about in a second. Um, I would consider training for strength in general uh, to be powerlifting. Would you agree with that?
Yeah. I think if you are, trying to see how strong you can get, whether you're just trying to see how strong your deadlift or deadlift and squat can get, I tend to
Yeah,
think that falls more in the powerlifting range than most
for
other
sure.
types of working out.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. I think the key difference for me between powerlifting and bodybuilding is the uh, basically the fact that like with powerlifting, it's about the numbers you're putting up. It's not necessarily about how you look doing it. Um, and with bodybuilding, it's kind of the opposite, where it's more about the aesthetics are what actually matter, and it doesn't necessarily matter how much weight you're moving. Now, obviously, there's a high correlation between being strong and being looking good, but it's not always as like one to one as you think. Like a lot of the like top power lifters in the world are like don't necessarily have the greatest physiques. But they can also, at the same time, they can squat, 1,000 pounds or bench press 700 pounds or, do insane feats of strength like this that are, mortal humans like you or me can't really comprehend. But uh, regardless, that's kind of how I would define powerlifting. Maybe Colin, we can talk a little bit about like what a typical split would look like for that, or how we would kind of program that?
Yeah, I mean, in terms of programming it, you're not going to really do, honestly, of the big three, you won't do more than 5 reps on a day
Yeah.
during one set. Because, I mean, in the name it says power, so you're trying to generate as much power as possible. So anything over that's like 5 reps is going to, take away from the power. You're going to have to start to utilize more of a stamina, more, use different energy versus trying to just push the heavy weight as fast as you possibly can.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, pretty much that. I think, yeah, to going off your point, there's this whole kind of idea of the like the rep range continuum, and then there's like the kind of the strength zone, and then there's the hypertrophy zone, and then there's like the endurance zone. So I think the cutoffs are kind of arbitrary. I think like 1 to 5 is kind of considered power. Like, well, I think one to 3 is more just like pure strength. Maybe 3 to like 8 is like kind of strength and power, and then like 8 to 12, 8 to 15, that's more hypertrophy, and then above 15 is more of like endurance. That's kind of how I see it. So and like the kind of, for those of you listening who don't know necessarily what those terms mean, like pure strength, obviously like a 1 rep max is like the truest test of just straight up strength, as there gets. Like you put the weight on the bar, how much can you move? That's like pure strength. Hypertrophy is muscular size. So like how big do your muscles get as a result of doing this set of like that number of reps? Assuming that you're taking it to, this is all assuming you're taking it to failure, right? So like, for example, maybe your deadlift max is 500 pounds, but like, for a set of, so like your 1 rep, that would be a single at 500 pounds. Like maybe your 10 rep is, I don't know, 365 or something. It's pulling a number out of my head. You would do that lighter weight in the hypertrophy range. So like obviously you're not going to be able to move the same amount of weight as your 1 rep max for 10 reps. Otherwise it would be a 10 rep max. So it sounds kind of simple, but you understand what I'm trying to say basically, Colin, right? Like it's
Yeah.
basically like with hypertrophy, you're doing lighter weight, more reps. Strength is fewer reps, heavier weight. Anyway. So, but yeah, with powerlifting, we're generally programming like probably in the 1 to 5 range for the most part.
And there's a lot of rest breaks. Like you're taking a 3 to 5 minute rest break minimum
Yep.
to the point where some of them have a lawn chair with them at the gym just
Yeah.
because.
Yeah. Yeah. I don't know about
You never,
that, but
you never seen that one happen?
I've seen like memes of it, but I don't think it's actually a real thing.
There was one guy at the gym that I used to go to. He would come in with a lawn chair because he had a minimum of 5 minute rest breaks in
That's
between each set. And I'm just like, dude, like
that's really
you,
funny.
you
Yeah.
gotta go at a time when there's nobody here. Like you just spent 30 minutes on bench press.
I do the same kind of a thing, honestly, with my I mean, like the thing is, and to that point, right? Like you might be thinking like, what, for like 3 reps, like 5 minutes rest? That's a super long time. But if you've ever trained powerlifting, you'll understand this. Like training, even like a triple or even a single, if you're going really heavy and pushing your body to its limit, that's going to take a while to recover from. It's not like you're just going to be able to hop in another set right off the bat. It takes time to recover from. So yeah, to your point, like it's taking long rest periods. That's kind of a staple of powerlifting as well.
Yeah.
Um, anyway, I think that's pretty thorough with powerlifting. We want to move on to bodybuilding, you think?
Yeah. You can take over on bodybuilding here.
For sure. Yeah. Yeah. So I can give just a quick overview. I think we already kind of covered it a little bit with powerlifting as far as what is bodybuilding. But it's basically just trying to build a physique that's as impressive as possible. And there's a lot of different definitions for what that might look like, right? So there's like example like open, like men's open bodybuilding, where they're literally just trying to look as absolute big and strong, like as big as possible, basically. And then there's like women's like bikini or like figure, where it's like it's very different, and they're just more just trying to look like lean and athletic as opposed to just like super super big muscles. So there's kind of a whole continuum of what bodybuilding actually is. But basically, I just consider bodybuilding anything under the umbrella of okay, we're going to actually just try to uh, build the most impressive physique that we can. Not necessarily lift the most amount of weight or have the most functional physique for a specific purpose. It's more just to like, it's more aesthetics and looking good. That's what bodybuilding is. Would you agree with that definition, Colin?
Yeah, I'd say bodybuilding. I mean, unless you're, trying to be, Chris Bumstead, but
Yeah,
I think it falls under anything where you're just trying to make specific muscle groups bigger or just trying to look bigger than what your strength really is. Not necessarily saying that you're weak or anything, but like, if you look like you can bench 225, that's great. But if you can't do it, then people won't know that because you look like you're big or you look like you're strong and can do it.
for sure. Yeah, for sure, for sure. And I think like there's this whole idea of the like that continuum that I was talking about earlier of the rep ranges and things like that. And there's a lot of overlap between like hypertrophy and strength, right? So much so to the point that like a lot of times, a lot of the best bodybuilders are also very strong, and a lot of the best power lifters are also very, aesthetic looking. Except maybe at the higher weight classes, it's a little bit different. But assuming maybe a power lifter who's at more of like a healthier body weight. But uh, anyway, where was I going with that? basically, uh, basically there's a lot of overlap between the rep ranges. So if you're training, even if you're training like a pure strength, even if you're training like in the 3 to 5 rep range or more, right? You're still going to get a lot of hypertrophy benefits. And even if you're training in the like, 15, if you're doing sets of 15, you're still going to get some strength benefits. It's more just the where you kind of want to put your focus. So I think people too, this is a mistake I think a lot of people have, or a mistaken view, is that like the powerlifting movements, the squat, bench, deadlift, things like that, that they don't actually build aesthetics and they don't actually build muscle. But in reality, that's not true. It really depends. I mean, it depends a bit on like how you do the exercise. And I know for bodybuilders, it's all about like trying to like bias certain muscle groups and like, maybe you do like a stiff leg deadlift if you're trying to hit hamstrings more as opposed to like a traditional deadlift, or maybe bench press, like you change the grip positioning a little bit so that you're trying to work more pack as opposed to more tricep, things like that. Things like that come into play a lot more with bodybuilding. But um, anyway, yeah, I don't really know where I was going with that. Just kind of giving more context on how bodybuilding works.
I know with bodybuilding, you ever heard of the guy named Jeff Nippard?
Yeah,
So he's a very big, like science-based, like you do this movement and science, like scientifically, this is going to improve the chest fibers and make them work the best.
sure,
There's more of that realm of bodybuilding where, you follow the science, you do 2 sets until failure or near failure, and then, you do specific exercises that will build
yeah,
that muscle in the surrounding
sure.
compared to if, you did a more of a older style bodybuilding where you just loaded up heavy weight and you just took it till failure,
Like
like more
Ronnie Coleman
Ronnie Coleman
squatting,
style.
front squatting 800 pounds or something crazy like that.
Yeah,
Yeah,
and I mean neither one's wrong. I mean the
yeah,
scientifically the science one will get you bigger and stronger, but not everybody cares to hook up an electro stim to their bodies and figure out where the optimal range for chest flies are at compared to just
yeah,
loading.
exactly. Yeah, and I think like for most people listening to this, I'm assuming, I think a lot of people's fitness goals I would actually classify as far as like just somebody with like a normal job and just looking to like get in better shape. Like I would actually classify just like generally getting in shape as a bodybuilding type of goal. Believe it or not, because like you are just more focused on improving your appearance, improving your aesthetics, and less concerned about necessarily lifting just a ton of weight. It's more just about looking good.
Yeah.
So most people do kind of fall into this range. In which case, like things like doing more isolation work, more specific machines, more targeted movements like that can be really beneficial. I think there's always been this debate in the kind of strength or fitness world of like body or of like machines versus free weights, and like whether you should do one or the other. And I think in my opinion it's more of just about understanding which one, like the benefits and drawbacks of each, right? Because machines, it's like, okay, you're gonna generally be able to isolate one specific muscle group a bit better. Example, think of like like a leg curl, like working your hamstrings, right? Like it's pretty much only going to be working your hamstrings and nothing else. Um, Versus, a deadlift is going to work your hamstrings in like five other different muscle groups, or like a squat or something like that too. So, uh, anyway, the point being, like it's just about like understanding how each exercise works as a tool, to kind of achieving what you want to achieve overall, versus like, oh, is one better than the other? I think saying like one is better than the other is a bit of a misguided question to begin with. That's kind of my opinion on it. But
Yeah. And I mean, one thing with it is what if you're at the gym, what's going to be available? Like if you're supposed to do, dumbbell chest flies, but
sure,
all the dumbbells are getting used, but the pec deck machine isn't, it's going to work the exact same muscles. It's going to be a tiny little bit difference, but not enough to where it's going to, completely derail your progress or,
for
just throw
sure.
you off what you're supposed to be doing.
For sure. Yeah, for sure. Maybe for Chris Bumstead or like a professional bodybuilder, it's a little bit different. But for you or me or anybody else out there listening to this, probably, uh, just you're able to make substitutions like that. It's not necessarily the end of the world if you have to do, uh, I don't know, cable chest flies as opposed to dumbbell chest flies or something like that. So anyway, um, I think that's pretty thorough on bodybuilding. You want to move on to CrossFit? I think you're going to probably have to take the lead on this one, Colin.
Yeah, they're probably the most hated out of all training styles. But with CrossFit, it doesn't necessarily fall under like a strength or a bodybuilding type. It falls more under of like unless you're taking away the top of the top athletes, it falls more to the general public and what their goals would be. And
Mhm.
with it is you're not going to go in there and you're not really going to see probably any machines in most gyms. You're not going to see, one person working out here, one person there. It tends to be a group class led by an instructor. So it's great for people that, don't know what they're doing or they're lazy. They don't really want to have someone make their program for them. They go in there and they have a program made already. Granted, it may not be what their specific goals are, but once you hit that certain age, your goal is just to stay in general healthy shape. And it's great for that. And I mean, it definitely works a lot more muscle groups than just like traditional bodybuild. Not necessarily works more, but you're going to hit multiple muscle groups on the same day
Yeah.
versus like a bodybuilding type, simply because, we have types of pull-ups, different things up on the rig versus on the rings versus, body weight. And
Yeah.
it emphasizes a lot more on improving your day-to-day life. So we do a lot of lifts in like we don't really bench press that often in there, but we will deadlift a lot more simply because, almost every single day you're going to have to bend over and tie your shoe or bend over and pick something up. So it's really helping you correlate fitness into your everyday lifestyle,
Mhm.
plus or minus a few things on there.
Yeah. For sure. For sure. Yeah, no, that makes sense. I think that was like kind of my one of my big questions about CrossFit. It was like, what was the general, like, how was it kind of invented, and like, what was the kind of general purpose of it? Because I have a pretty good, I guess, understanding of how the setup works, and that, like, you have a specific workout of the day, and you're probably going to be doing a lot of different types of movements and exercises. It's almost like, to me, CrossFit, I've always seen it as, I guess, you're going to be getting strength training benefits, but you're also going to be building like cardio and general fitness as well at the same time. Could you maybe talk a little bit about that, Colin, and how that piece of it kind of works?
Yeah. So I can't speak for all gyms, but I can speak for a lot of them that there's typically 4 training blocks we have throughout the year. So like
Yeah,
we have one where we prioritize a lot of like gymnastics to say movement. So a lot more pull-ups, a lot more of handstands, toes to bar in that realm.
yeah,
We
yeah.
have a
Almost like
strength block.
calisthenics type stuff.
Yeah, we have a strength block where, we're going to prioritize, we're going to take 3 different lifts and we're going to just work on building strength for them, whether
Sure.
that's the clean and jerk, just a jerk, deadlift, back squat, front squat,
Yeah.
different realms. We have more of an endurance block, so we're going to do, a lot more of longer workouts, a lot more running, a lot more cardio movements. And then we have one that tends to fall with all 3 of them. And it's just, because we don't, just lift for 4 months out of the year and then not lift anymore. We're obviously going to program it, but during the strength block, we're going to be lifting 4, potentially 5 times a week, versus now we're only going to be lifting 2, maybe 3 times a week, with an emphasis more on improving your gymnastics movements.
Sure. For sure. Okay, yeah. So it just depends on what season you're in, as far as what the actual focus is specifically. But it's still, I mean, it still seems like basically, even if you're in like a strength block, let's say, like you're still going to be doing some kind of movements that are going to uh, influence the other areas, right?
Yeah, like if we're in the strength block, we're not just lifting one day and that's it. Like we'll have a
Yeah,
probably a 15 to 20-minute lift, whether that's just like a 5x5, 5x3, 5x7, something in that realm.
yeah,
And then after that, we'll have a workout that it'll tend to complement the lift more. We won't, like, if we're front squatting one day, we probably won't front squat in the workout, but we might do like a weighted lunge, or we might do
yeah,
something else that's going to help work the quads more,
yeah, for sure.
but not leave out your upper body or anything. So we'll have something that is thrown in there that will help the upper body become stronger as well.
For sure. Yeah, that's interesting. That's interesting. I was going to say, um, to me, it almost seems to like the general kind of goal. Like I think of like when I think CrossFit, I think of like like the CrossFit Games and like some of the kind of athletes there, and it's like they're strong athletes, but they're also like very fit. They have very good cardio, and my understanding is that's kind of the objective of training. I mean, it probably depends on exactly who the person is, but if you're really serious about CrossFit, that seems like that's kind of the end goal is, you get to the point where you're strong, like functionally, you probably also look pretty good. And not only that, you have good cardio and good fitness to be able to kind of complement that strength and use that strength in like a kind of high work capacity type of way.
I mean, the biggest difference between like the CrossFit Games, I mean, those are the top of the top
I
athletes.
mean, obviously that's an extreme example, but
These people they're running sub 530 miles and then deadlifting 500 plus back to back. Like they're not just having one, like they're training on average 4 to 6 hours a day.
yeah,
And I mean, that's not the general public. Like these people like they've dedicated the entire 20s just to do this.
for sure, yeah,
But I
yeah.
mean, in terms of them, yes.
Like
But
you're gonna build, you're gonna kind of build those together.
yeah.
Yeah,
But I mean,
obviously I think like those examples are pretty insane. I think for either deadlifting 500 or running sub 530 is like pretty challenging for the
yeah.
general public, let alone doing them together. So yeah,
I mean, taking out those people, it's more of a general population, people that don't know what to do or they prefer that structure.
yeah,
It's a lot better for than just walk into a gym and hoping something's open for them that they might enjoy doing.
yeah, for sure, for sure. That makes sense. That makes sense. Cool, cool. Anything else you wanted to say about CrossFit, or I think that's
Man,
a pretty good intro.
I understand that the pull-ups suck and everyone disses on them, but it's okay. It's fun. They're fun to do.
For pull-ups, Colin, I guess maybe what say somebody's coming into CrossFit and they are not even able to do a single pull-up on their own. Like, what would be how would that kind of work out for somebody like that, or like maybe in general, maybe not just pull-ups specifically, but I'm sure like there's a lot of movements probably in CrossFit that if you're like a beginner, if you're new to it, that you might have a tough time with. Like, what's the kind of path to get into it if you're brand new, I guess.
So I can speak for the gym that I coach at more
Sure.
than most gyms simply because I'm there. But
Yeah.
each coach is certified. We have to make sure of it. We're all certified with all of our certifications up to date, and you can check it on the website and everything to prove it. But each one of us has the knowledge and ability to scale down the workout. So, like, let's say you walked in right now, Grant, and you couldn't do there's 10 strict pull ups in workout. Let's say you could not do 10 strict pull ups, but you
Yeah.
could get 2 or 3. We'd encourage you to shoot for those 2 or 3. And then we have bands that you can get into to help you finish off. And we're not going to put you in a band where you're just going to bounce up and down. It's going to be a band where it's challenging, but you're still getting the attendance stimulus. Just,
Yeah, exactly. Exactly. It's like you're taking it to failure, but you're not, not pushing it. You're not pushing too far. You're not too far away from failure.
If those bands are completely out of the equation and you still can't get it, then we just incorporate like a ring row or something, and we'd go over how far back you should stand or how close to it you should stand. And I mean, yeah, different muscle groups are, it's a little bit different of a muscle group, but you're still incorporating mainly the upper back there to pull yourself up.
It sounds like you're basically making like reasonable accommodations to
Yeah.
somebody who's brand new and like maybe not able to do
Yeah. We have accommodations for brand new people. We have accommodations for people that are way better than everybody else and needs to be challenging,
it.
pregnant
Yeah,
people, postpartum people. So
sure, for sure, for sure. All sorts of different scenarios, basically.
yeah.
Very cool, very cool. Good to know. CrossFit, check it out, guys, if you're listening. I've never actually done much CrossFit. I've done Murphs, but that's about it.
Grant, come down to good old Seymour, Indiana, and come do a
Yeah,
CrossFit.
yeah, yeah. I'll get a workout in with you sometime down there. It'll be fun. Uh,
Fun.
anyway, okay, so that's CrossFit. Unless you want to say anything more about it, Colin. Cool. Let's move on. Talk a little bit about running, and I guess maybe we could just do like say like cardio training in general. Running kind of being maybe I would say probably the most popular subset of cardio training. Um, so running, right? Like I think people. I'll just start by saying I think I fell in this boat too 2 years ago of like thinking that running is all. Uh, like a lot of people have this misguided kind of sense of running, right? If they think that it has to like always suck and be really painful and like experience a lot of discomfort and things like that, which depending on how you do it can actually be true or maybe not true. So I think that probably the biggest mistake people make when it comes to running is they get into it and like maybe you go for a 2-3 mile jog and you kind of just sprint the entire thing, right? Like you kind of just go as fast as humanly possible, and then by the end of it you're really tired and really winded, and then you're like shit, like this sucks. I don't really want to run anymore after that. And I think that's kind of where a lot of the issues people fall into. So running, in my opinion, maybe we talk a little bit about the benefits too. Like the biggest benefit, in my opinion, is mental. Like there is going to be some kind of discomfort into it, no matter how you kind of shake it. But uh, learning to kind of overcome that discomfort and grow and push through it is kind of how you build mental strength in addition to physical. Um, Probably the next biggest thing behind that is the cardio benefits and like the heart health. You're going to build, running a lot, like you're going to build very, very good cardiovascular fitness. Your heart's going to become a lot more efficient at pumping blood throughout your body. I used to wear a Whoop strap. I don't really wear it anymore. But when I wore it, I tracked my resting heart rate from like before I started running until after, and it dropped. Before it was in probably the mid 50s in terms of beats per minute, and then after I started running, it ended up dropping to the high 40s beats per minute as far as resting heart rate. Resting heart rate, by the way, is like when you're asleep. What is your heart rate basically? Um, but anyway, with running, I think it's a really good one to complement like a strength program. I'm not saying you have to go on a run every single day. Some people really love it and they love getting out there all the time. But it can also be something that you just do like a couple times a week. Maybe go for a few miles each time. You don't have to necessarily push it super super hard. If you want to push it hard, you're going to get um, a bit more benefit as far as like lung health and fitness, like improving your VO2 max, things like that, improving your lactate threshold, which is basically the point where you transition from aerobic to anaerobic um, training, where aerobic is more like fat burning, anaerobic is more like using carbs as energy. But yeah, that's kind of running in a nutshell. I think people like again like people shy away from it because they think, oh, you have to like run super super fast and come out of the gate super fast every time. In reality, especially if you're training for a longer race, like most of your runs, almost all of your runs are going to be done at like a much slower pace, to the point where it's actually like pretty enjoyable in my opinion for a lot of it. But
I hate running.
yeah.
It's not me. I hate it.
See, Colin, this is the perfect example right here of what I was just saying. Um, Colin, when you go out on runs, maybe I'll ask you this: like, what is like um, the pace that you try and keep, or like, do you think about a pace, or you just kind of try and go as fast as possible?
Go as fast as possible so I can stop.
See, that's the problem. So for most people, right? Like if you're going to go and push as fast as possible, like you're probably going to burn out within a few miles and like not really want to go any further than that. Now, if
No.
you're doing like a 5K for time, or if you're doing a 1 mile for time or something, and you're just trying to put up a good time for that, then yeah. But like literally, I don't even like doing 1 mile or 3 mile runs for time at all, just because you get so tired afterwards, and it really is tough on it burns your lungs and you just feel like really winded afterwards. But if you go at a slower pace to the point where this is where I'm talking about the lactate threshold too. If you're going at a pace where you can actually like hold a conversation with somebody and like you're just jogging next to them, and you can just talk to them. Like a 3 mile run can go from being like really really hard if you're pushing the pace hard to being like actually like pretty easy for a good chunk of the population if you're not pushing the pace too much. Obviously everybody's in a different boat as far as like where their running goals are, and some people, maybe for some people, running 1 mile is even a big accomplishment. But that's kind of how I see it. I think a lot of people are afraid of it because they I don't know, they don't necessarily take the right approach to it going in. But
Yeah. I mean, with all due respect, running is great and I do it,
yeah.
but like I need to run in an environment where I don't have to worry about like the road or a sidewalk. Like
Oh yeah.
put me in, like the middle of the woods, I can run
Yeah.
for,
Like
but like
a trail. Yeah, absolutely, dude. I'm with that. I'm with that.
but like running around the block or
Yeah.
running like that is not as enjoyable for me.
I'm with that, man.
But
100%.
running is great. You should totally do it.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
Don't
I think if
don't
you're running, what was
don't
that?
burn, don't burn yourself out in the first
Don't burn
200.
yourself out, especially if you're a beginner. That's a good way to hate running and never want to do it again. I recommend starting slow, and then getting a sense of like what kind of a pace you can hold an easy conversation at. For a lot of people, I think that's a lot of people. It's slower than you think. Like it's probably even for me, and I run all the time. I'm training for a 100 mile race in June right now.
Um,
It's like my slow conversation pace is probably like 10 minutes per mile or above, which is it doesn't even really feel like you're going that very fast, and you're not, but you really got to take it very slow and easy in order to get a sense of like what that baseline is. And then it's like, okay, if you want to have a specific workout where you want to push the pace a little bit, and build some lactate threshold, and build some fitness there, then you can do it. But trying to go out every day and run as fast as possible, that's a death wish right there, in my opinion. So
that would be, you're gonna have your lungs are gonna be burning. You're
yeah, yeah,
gonna be
for sure,
gasping for air.
for sure, dude. Yeah, 100%. One other thing I want to talk about with running too is the interference effect, and this is with cardio in general, not just running, guys. So the interference effects between cardio and strength training. This is important to know because I think a lot of people assume that like you can just like go and run and then strength train or strength train and run with like zero kind of negative repercussions on either. I think what you were just saying, Colin, too, about like the CrossFit games, like those guys that go run 5 minute 30-second mile and then deadlift 500 or something crazy like that, which you can train it, you can kind of train up to that point, but for most people, it's like there's going to be an interference effect. So if you go and run, especially if you're doing like a lot of a high mileage workout like the day before, and then you go and do like a squat or a deadlift, like your body, your central nervous system really only has like a finite ability to recover, right? So I think it's easy to look at like muscular fatigue in and of itself, and obviously like after a run, like maybe your feet, your calves are a little beat up, maybe your quads and glutes and stuff a little bit, but probably not as much as your calves and your shin splints. You'll get the shin splints, things like that. Um, but what's really the most beat up after a long run is like your central nervous system. Like the next day, you just feel tired, you feel kind of burnt out, and like going and trying to lift back to back on that is you're just not going to be able to do as much weight as you probably would have, or put up as many reps as you would have been able to had you been completely fresh going in. That's kind of the biggest place I see it playing out, and the same goes in reverse too. Like if you do a heavy lift and then go and run, like your run is probably going to suffer a little bit because you did the lift beforehand. So not saying you can't do both. I'm training both right now, obviously, but there is an interference effect that you have to be mindful of if you do that.
Yeah.
Yeah. Anyway, but yeah, that's pretty much running in a nutshell, and cardio training in a nutshell. None of these four kind of styles of training, powerlifting, bodybuilding, CrossFit, running, none of these four that we mentioned are really like, no one of them is correct per se. It kind of just depends on your goals and what you actually enjoy training, and kind of mapping it out from there. There's not really a right or wrong answer to this. So that's uh, that's my thoughts on different training styles.
Yeah. I mean, there's no one that's better than another. It's going to be depending on what you enjoy, what you're
Yeah,
able to do, and what ultimately just what you like to do.
yeah, exactly. So it all kind of boils down to that. But anyway, I hope you guys enjoyed this one. Hope you learned something about uh, training styles and how to, kind of some details about each one, and hopefully gave you some advice for how to pick out what kind of training you enjoy and what training you want to do. So yeah. Anyway, guys, it's been great chat with you guys, and we will see you on the next podcast. Peace out.